Let's shift to Newark now, where unfortunately not a lot of people are watching the New Jersey Devils because it's been a tough season. General manager Ray Shero has been fired. Assistant general manager Tom Fitzgerald will handle Shero's duties on an interim basis, with the Devils goaltending great as well. Marty Brodeur helping out. The change comes a little more than a month after Shero fired head coach John Hines and the trade, of course, of 2018 MVP player Taylor Hall to Arizona. So this has been a really difficult season for the New Jersey Devils. They had so much hype coming into the year. They got the #1 overall draft pick with Jack Hughes, and then things started to spiral after that. Corey Schneider had some goaltending issues. They fired the head coach, as I just mentioned, trade away their best player, and now general manager Ray Shero is gone. So, Jonesy, where do they go from here?
Well, they got a lot of work to do, no question about that, but they do have time. I mean, they have a couple of first overall picks in Hischier and Hughes over the last 3 seasons. So you would not expect them to be necessarily at the point where they're a playoff team. They appeared like they were a playoff team before the season started on paper, based on some of the moves that Ray Shero made. And I think it was probably some pressure from ownership to let's get this thing moving forward a little bit now. Let's make ourselves at least in the conversation for the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And he was given the ability to go out and spend some money. Brought in PK Subban. Wayne Simmons signed in the offseason as well. Gusev was brought over. And when you looked at the New Jersey Devils, you thought, okay, this is much better than it's been previously. And you would have expected that to translate it to the way that they played it on the ice. Didn't happen. So you have to think that there was a conversation between Joshua Harris and Ray Shero about where the team was going to be at this point of the season before the season began. And they're not where they were expected to be. So the fans aren't coming out the way that you would have anticipated if the Devils started to turn things around like it appeared like they would. And somebody had to pay the price. But it's very surprising because Ray Shero is a very good general manager. He's an awesome guy. And I was shocked when I saw this. But it has to be about whatever his conversations were with ownership on where the team was going to be at the midway point of this season. The team underachieved and under his helm and under his guidance and didn't meet the expectations that he set forth for the organization, and therefore he lost his job.
And you got to think they're looking across the river and seeing what's happening with the New York Rangers and seeing the exciting brand of hockey that they're putting on the ice right now. They're in the same position that Jersey was last year, this offseason. Everyone was pumped up to watch New York, and they're battling for a playoff spot. Mm-hmm. But I think it's the Vegas effect too, KT. You think about Vegas when they came to the league, it's supposed to be a bunch of cast-offs. But all of a sudden, these guys are competing for Stanley Cup championship in day one. So that's really put a lot of owners and GMs and coaches really on alert, saying, if these guys can do that right away, what's taking you guys so long? Like, I don't want to hear about a 5-year plan. I want to get this done right now. It's, let's microwave this thing. Let's not convection oven it. Let's microwave. Let's get this thing going right now. And that's a problem that you're seeing. But if I'm Marty Brodeur and the guys in the organization, I would go and talk to Luc Robitaille. I remember when I finished playing in 08, 09-ish. I remember Lucky took over as team president there in LA. And he's really focused on the business of hockey in LA. And hockey had a small group of fans out there, rabid fans, almost like New Jersey. Even though New Jersey is a big, big market, it really isn't that big. And you focus on just the business side. I'm reaching out to the community and really talk about the brand of hockey that the Devils want to play and getting that brand out to the corporate business partners. And bring a hockey person in, like a Lombardi, to focus on the hockey itself and then grow it that way. Because if you don't, the Devils are just going to flounder. And they can't. Like, people think it's a big market. It's not a big market. The Devils are a small market team playing in the backyard of New York City.
The Rangers very close. There's a lot of people that live. Listen, I was born and raised in New Jersey. There's a lot of Rangers fans in that state, as many as there are, maybe more, than the New Jersey Devils. So, yeah, they have to appeal to the fan base. No one can get that fan base better than Marty Brodeur can, because he was the face and is the face of that franchise forever. Getting him out in the community, getting him involved a little bit more, I don't know from a decision-making standpoint behind closed doors in the front office, but, you look at Tom Fitzgerald, who's now in that seat, and he was in Pittsburgh when they won their cups, Jonesy. I mean, would he be an answer to replace him on a permanent basis? Or, Ace just threw out Dean Lombardi's name. He's available.
Yeah, there's experienced guys out there as well. Ron Hextall's out there as well. I played with Tom Fitzgerald. I think he's a great hockey man. He was a very good leader amongst men. He led in Colorado when I was there with him, and there was a lot of leaders on that team and superstars and Hall of Famers. So he's very comfortable in those situations. It wouldn't shock me that he turns into an excellent general manager. Bill Guerin was also with him in Pittsburgh, and now Bill Guerin, of course, is running the Minnesota Wild. I wouldn't throw out Tom Fitzgerald. I would, without question, make sure I got a good sample size now while on borrowed time the rest of this season and see what he brings to the table. I don't think that ownership would be disappointed in what Tom Fitzgerald can bring. But there is experienced general managers that are available. And the one that was just down the road last year in Philadelphia is Ron Hextall. And you have to wonder if his name would be someone that would be brought up. I'm sure his name will be brought up and interviewed to see if, in fact, he would have some ideas on how to turn that franchise back in the right direction. It's a very proud franchise. It's one that had won multiple cups going back, over the last couple of decades, and we're a very difficult team to play against forever. And whether or not the building was packed or not, the Devils had a certain brand.
Yeah, Lou Lamoriello didn't care that it was packed or not every night.
That was
he wanted
leadership.
The guys to play,
yeah.
right?
And that was one of the best general managers in the history of our game. So are you going to get Lou Lamoriello type management? Well, maybe. But you need if you're going that way, you would probably need somebody that's got some experience as a general manager in the National Hockey League.
But you also have to embrace someone that will embrace people getting out in the community too. Because as successful as Marty has been, I'm sure he could walk different places in New Jersey and no one know who he is. You can't say the same thing about a Henrik Lundqvist in New York walking down Fifth Avenue. Everyone knows who Hank is in New York. But in New Jersey, Marty could walk anywhere outside of Newark. And I'm pretty sure no one's going to know who Marty Brodeur is. He's one of the best goalies of all time.
You'd be surprised.
I've asked a lot of people in Jersey, and a lot of people are like...
He's very well known in that area, and he, especially among his kids, went to school, part of them, growing up in New Jersey. But let's focus on the ice, though, because I want to know, when you look at on the ice, what the product is for the New Jersey Devils. They've obviously had goaltending issues this season, but where do you begin to fix things from the players on the ice perspective, Jonesy?
The draft, and they've started with 2 first overall picks, but the draft picks after that have not been very good. So they have lost some of their depth, and players that should be pushing for top 6 roles, like Pavel Zacha, have not met expectations that you would think that a player drafted where he was would meet. I think that's where a lot of the issues have started with. So they tried to fill in some of those blanks through trades and free agent signings, and of course picking up a former Norris Trophy winner in PK Subban, who also is kind of goes into what Ace is talking about, as one of those players that can really get out there in the community and bring people together, and has that type of personality that attracts people to watch him and what he does, not just on how he plays the game, but he's an interesting person to follow. And I think that was part of the idea of bringing PK to New Jersey, was all the other things that he has been known to bring. That really hasn't had an effect yet. And that's something that I think the Devils need to do a better job of. And the one way you do that is win hockey games. So their on-ice product right now has been better recently. They're starting to play to their expectations prior to the season. But this season, because of the division they're in, is really a lost season. And they just need to make sure that they really show their fans something in the second half, that they have a willingness to compete. They're not going to roll over, and they're going to have little steps in the process of becoming a good team again. But it's not going to happen this year. I mean, they're gonna bump along this year, and that's a lot of that's going to come down to what they do in the offseason, who they re-sign, and who they go out there to add to get some pieces, including goaltending. And there's some depth in goaltending in other teams around the league. There is no depth in goal in New Jersey, and that's got to get fixed. And believe me, they were spoiled for 20 years with Marty Brodeur in goal. You're not going to find another Marty Brodeur. You may never find another Brodeur, but you need somebody to come in there that can solidify that position.
It could be interesting. Robin Leonard. No, his deal's up.
Yeah,
Robin
Corey
Leonard
Crawford.
Could be an interesting person. Yeah, Corey Crawford as well in Chicago. I'm a firm believer you build teams from the back end out. And they brought in PK this year to help solidify that. He hasn't had the season they were expecting. They have Vatanen in there. It's been okay.
Andy
Green's been okay. Severson's been okay. Like, you got to build from the back end first. They have the pieces up front with Hughes and Hischier, but they don't have the defense that you need. But they're going to get another piece this year. They could be a lottery team again this year. So I think they're at least 4 or 5 years away. But if you're a potential general manager looking for a job, this is a pretty good spot to be, Jonesy, with all the assets they have, thinking that you can build these building blocks and have a way to at some point in the next 5 years, gets where he needs to go.
And their owner, Joshua Harris, who also owns the 76ers in Philadelphia, has been extremely patient with the 76ers. They had 5 years of losing where they accumulated, top draft picks in order to try to turn their franchise around. They went from having nobody at their games to selling out every game. And he has proven through that team that he's willing to wait. And I think he must have thought that the Devils were a little further ahead in their evolution this year, that kind of forced him into making that change at the general manager position. So you can be sure he's in a hurry-up offense right now. He wants this team to turn around quickly. And if you're a Devils fan, you're probably happy about that. Mm-hmm. Whether you like Ray Shero or not, you're probably happy that there's some change coming and you want to see this team, your team, turn around and get back in the fight here.